Harleen issue 3. So Stjepan Šejić, I just remembered there. We're like to call him Stephen now.
Yeah.
So he gave us permission, personally. Wrote us a note. So last issue kind of ended with the first sort of intimate moment between Harley and the Joker in one of their private meetings, the camera covered, and that becomes kind of a running thing in this issue where she keeps doing that. She keeps having the camera covered or turned off, and these private sessions, which, you know, and he gets unrestrained, and at first it's just they're sitting talking when he's unrestrained, and there maybe some hugging, some hand holding, and it kind of escalates and escalates and escalates, and you really feel that she's pushing the envelope every single time she goes back, you know. And obviously it gets to the point eventually where she properly dolls herself up, goes in, and they straight up have sex in the interrogation. Well, not interrogation, it's Arkham sets it.
And as she's doing this, I'm going, and I know where this is going, right?
Interview,
right?
Yeah.
Like we all know this is her becoming Harley Quinn, but I'm reading it and I'm going, no, stop. What are you doing?
Do you know what? In that regard, because I was thinking about this, it reminds me of Better Call Saul. In that, you're watching it, you know how this ends, you know it's doomed, but you're still going, please just turn out differently this time.
Yeah.
I think what it does really well is that it never tries to convince us, the reader, that Joker really kind of loves her, and or at least, I mean, maybe he does, but it never goes down that path. It focuses it way more on her like growing obsession, and we can see it's unhealthy, and she even like kind of like acknowledges that it's probably unhealthy, but she can't see around her feelings. She can't feel anything else.
No, and that's her problem, as she brings up throughout everything, right? Is this happened in college with her professor? Like, she does things that she's not supposed to, and she can't stop herself. So even though she knows she's not supposed to, because she has that moment where she looks herself in the mirror and go, are you really putting on makeup for this? And then she goes through with it, like, so yeah, like, you know, that's what makes it almost a tragedy, is, you know, she knows it's wrong, but she gets to a point where she just doesn't care.
Yeah,
and because of Gotham, it's like Gotham turned her into this because she started to care too much, and the key to Gotham is you don't care at all. Which we know is not true, right? Like,
yeah, but that's what the book's kind of
been. With Gordon and Batman, from another point of view, you know, that's not true. But with her and her trying to do good, and then we'll get to the Two-Face stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it was really smart, actually. That whole stuff with the college professor is a really nice little touch that just kind of sets up the idea that she already has a thing for being attracted to men. She's really not supposed to. So what's, I mean, obviously, okay, it's a faux pas to like want the professor who's the older man, right? What's even more extreme than that? You know, because the idea of like any kind of like sexual fetish or thing that gets more and more extreme, typically the way it happens for a lot of like deviants, if you will, is that it escalates, right? It starts off with just little risky things, but isn't necessarily that bad. But then they keep chasing the high, and eventually the stuff they're getting away with isn't enough anymore, so they keep chasing, you know, bigger and more extremes. It kind of like ties into that. So Harley, you know, yes, not only her patient, but a patient who is a notorious mass murderer and a complete psychopath. You know, it's someone who is unredeemable.
Pulled a gun on her in the first issue.
Yeah,
right.
And by the end of this issue, as we were told in the first one, she's a murderer right alongside him.
Right.
Yeah.
And that tragedy too. That hit hard. Like, you kind of get to that point with what happens early in the book with that character, and then it didn't go down as I expected it to.
It did a good job over the 3 issues of just kind of establishing the security guard as someone who she talks to here or there, and then this issue obviously had
someone that, like, you never get the feeling like he's attracted to her. He doesn't want her to fall into that pit that is Gotham, right?
Yeah, you know, they're not even like friends. They're just, you know, they're work colleagues. They see each other on a very regular basis, so they're friendly with each other, and you get that. It feels, you know, realistic.
But there's enough small talk, there's enough advice from him, and obviously the thing in this issue is that he actually comes in to check that she's okay, which obviously for her in the moment is a pain, because she has to quickly, like, you know, fasten the Joker back up because they're being too flirty. But you know, he's doing it out of concern. You know, under any normal circumstances, this is a completely valid and welcome thing to happen. But of course, she's trying to sneak all these, as she calls it, they're not really interview sessions, they're dates. That's what they became in her mind by the time, you know, things went bad. And of course, Two-Face kind of throws the wrench in everything, because Two-Face, I actually kind of liked how this book subtly kind of explained how he gets his henchmen. like the henchmen are all these like disgruntled cops who want his version of justice.
So not only is this my favorite version of Harley, Sejik's given me my favorite version of Two-Face, who is a character I already love. But what he does here with the psychosis that's created from the attack, and you know, Gotham created him, just like Gotham created Batman, and yeah, it's so good.
This really interesting thing, because coming into the book, obviously we knew we were getting the Harley story, but you know, mentioning Two-Face early on was kind of just a bit of a throwaway line at first, and then it's like, oh no, it's actually not as much a Two-Face story as Harley, of course, but it's got a significant, you know, portion dedicated to Harvey.
Well, he's almost the antagonist.
I mean, he's there for two reasons. He's there because thematically, the whole idea of two personalities, right?
The duality, yeah, of course.
So he's there, he's there thematically, but he's also there just as a plot device because he's the thing that unleashes the riot in this issue, which is going to be a big deal.
Oh, sure, but I mean, if you just wanted to do a plot device, it would be easy to do anything. The fact that you do it with, okay, we're doing it with Two-Face, we're making it feel relevant, give it the appropriate time to build, so it's not just the antagonistic thing that's just kind of there.
It's also the idea, of course, that he's developing to this point at the same time as Harley. You know, this is him. This is the part where he properly becomes Two-Face. He already looks like Two-Face. He's hearing the voice, but this is the first time, because as we hear in this, we're seeing this issue, they still refer to him as the DA. They're still talking about him as if he's still going to be active in duty soon. You know, like he's not like a lost cause. And this attack on Arkham is that no, this is him. He's a villain now, and this is where the public are going to stop seeing him as the DA. They're going to start seeing him as this villainous Two-Face.
Right, and his whole, you know, when the executioners come to him, they're like, no, you know, we thought you were onto something as the prosecutor. You know, let's throw all these guys, but it doesn't go far enough. And then Harvey puts it together. He's like, well, yeah, the death penalty is a joke in this town. We need to make them remember why it should be a thing. But is it going to be Blackgate that they go release everybody, or Arkham? And
by the way, I love that page turn because he says he pulls out the card and he's like, heads. So which place are we going to liberate? Essentially, is it going to heads, Blackgate, or tails? And then you just turn the page and it's just a caption saying Arkham Asylum because we're going to Arkham. I love that transition. It was just a nice touch.
So good. And then just too, what Harvey represents in that there's black and white, and what Harleen, she's about these shades of gray, right? Her whole reason of going to Arkham is the empathy, right, in a war zone. That the longer you're there, the more like you have to disassociate yourself from the people because they're threats. And with Harvey, he could never do that now, right? Like
also
it's Ironsby.
This book, I had no reason to think about it, but this book just kind of like subtly showed me that Harvey and Harley are only one letter apart. Because when she wrote their names out like side by like on top of each other, I was like, oh shit, they're practically the same name, just with one letter different.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point that Harley makes, right? Is we're basically the same. Yeah,
and then of course she rubs out a lot of it, and it just leaves "ha-ha" as the starting of the two words, and I was like, oh, okay, nice touch. And she's obviously losing it at that point because. And what I love about this is she's got this thing going with Joker where she's basically seeing him on a regular basis. And I love how, like, after she has sex with him, it was like later on that night, like she's in bed and she was just like euphoric. She's just like thinking about how happy she is. It really sells like how in the deep end she's went with these feelings.
Right.
But Two-Face throws this wrench in it because this riot means that Joker's no longer in his cage and like her pet anymore. Like now he's going to be faced with all these things, and he kind of cracks a joke as he's like leaving his cell. He's like, oh well, Harley, we tried it, and she's not even around. He's just cracking a joke essentially. But she runs in there, Gordon's there, Batman's fighting Bane. We hear Batgirl and Robin are both like taking on trying to save hostages that Mr. Freeze has got. I like this is just a subtle thing, but I loved how what there's like random chatter from like the emergency services, and someone's using like a fire hose to try and do something, and someone says, "No, stop that! If Freeze is in there, that'll cause chaos." But nice little touch. But like it's like she has to go in there, and we get this kind of like confrontation where Two-Face is there, we get the security guards there, and Harley ends up shooting the security guard. And we get all these
Joker, as she sees it.
Yeah, and we get all these it's a great 2-page layout of all these like moments from the previous book of this guy's life and talking about his wife and kids and all these little moments, and it really does a good job of setting up this guy who's obviously just here destined to be the guy who gets killed to like show that she's properly flipped, and this is the point of no return. I think what's interesting to me, what I'm surprised about, is that the book. Oh, by the way, I loved all the jokes. Just before I move on, I forget this. I loved all the jokes that all the little lines from Joker about because he beats the shit out of Two-Face. He doesn't kill him, but he beats him like a brick. And when someone else sees him, he says, "Oh, I can't tell if that's Harvey Dent. He's all mangled."
His face is mangled.
And Joker goes like, "Oh, I did half that."
Yeah. I'm trying to even him out.
All those little digs about Two-Face really made me laugh.
Yeah.
But I was surprised because I think the narration for me at the start of the book, it sounded like it was Harley narrating from past the point of where she's, because obviously in a lot of other books in like present day DC, she's become more of an anti-hero and she's kind of post-Joker. And it almost felt the narration for a large part was coming from that point of view, and it still feels like it is. It's just, but it never. When it jumped ahead like 4 years later at the end, I kind of expected it to get to the point where she is sitting there telling the story or in some way. And it isn't. This is just her and Phil Harley in the suit.
I actually thought it was interesting at the end because it's her saying, even though that this is, like it is now, even the darkest night must end, right? And it's like she's been kind of self-aware throughout all of this. She hasn't gone completely insane in the same way that a lot of the other criminals have. She has had this awareness of what she's been doing and knowing what she was doing was wrong, unlike some of the others.
Right, because she's not actually like them, right? She's still an outsider amongst them.
Yeah.
And that's why she hits it off with Ivy, right? Because Ivy's kind of the same way, that she's in there, she treats her with compassion, and she goes back. She goes, hey, as she starts having breakthroughs, she goes, oh, I know that your condition, you say you need sunlight, so she gives her a room with a window.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's also why there's a justifiable kind of like, just seed in our minds that she can be redeemed, that one day she can come back.
Yeah, that's kind of where this ends, is she knows that at some point this Harley Quinn is gone, and Harleen will take back over, so to speak.
Hey, I honestly think there's room for a sequel here of telling that story of the other end of this, of when Harleen becomes Harleen again.
I mean, we could get it.
Yeah,
who knows?
It'd call it Harley. Call it Harley issue 1, 2, 3.
Right, and I'm there for that. For whatever Cedric does with DC.
I think they'd probably call it Harleen and with a subtitle.
Probably.
The Return, yeah. Not the Fantabulous Emancipation though.
I feel like you'd make some nice. Again, you'd do some parallels with Two-Face. The other side of the coin.
Right.
You can do some stuff in that book.
Yeah,
assuming that Two-Face is still around in that book. Although I feel like he should be if they do a sequel, just because.
I feel like we need to jump forward and see what happened after, because everybody gets out, right? Like, because we get that awesome page with Ivy as she gets regrown with the fertilizer.
Phenomenal.
Joker just casually saying, "Hey, these enforcers were Two-Face. Kill them, Croc." Right. Croc just like, "Yeah, with pleasure."
and you just see them ripping one in half.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
And it gets kind of brutal too. Like, you see the chunks taken out of people.
Yeah.
By Croc and whatnot. Harley comes across and.
It's Black Label, so it's likely to be the R-rated horror version of this. Yeah.
And you also get Joker saying, telling those security guards, "Hey, you got a choice to go down there. Just know, though, Zaz is doing his thing. So make the right decision."
Uh-huh.
And of course, this is a Cedric book, so it is very sexy, is I think the appropriate word.
Yeah, there's a lot of sexiness throughout, which is just kind of par for the course with
it is, but it kind of makes, given that this is about Harley falling in love with Joker, it works.
Oh no,
That's the thing. It never feels gratuitous though. Everything's done.
It fits the themes of the story. It feels like the story. Mature. It feels like the story justifies the feeling that it has. It feels like the feeling of her kind of like becoming more sexualized as the story goes on, because she's feeling more and more sick. Because she mentions multiple times that she's not even worn makeup since college. That's a part of her life she's been kind of shut off from. And she kind of becomes more sexual as the story goes on. That makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense to show that. The argument, I suppose, against it would be that Cedric basically draws everyone sexy from the get-go. Because
it's kind of his thing.
Yeah. But
he's very good at it.
I mean, even Two-Face, you look at the one side of his face, you're like, look good.
Yeah.
But I like he doesn't shy away from it, but it also never feels pervy. You know what I mean? Like all the angles are there.
Yeah,
And,
I could
and
see.
whatnot.
I could see a sequel to this happening. But it's worth mentioning as well the scene with Batman towards the end. Where we actually just, for the first time in the book, just cut to like Batman in the cave talking to Alfred, which is, you know, obviously not been this book's thing, but it's basically just this little analysis of like to confirm that Joker was kind of playing her the entire time. Like Joker was using her to get out, and this love isn't real and never was. Which is also why I think a sequel is very possible because
it also Alfred also points out that the kiss was also fairly genuine on his part as well. So it's not like he,
Oh sure, I mean as best as he can tell, but like I think the fact that Harley never acknowledges that she was being used and never realizes it, to me says we need a sequel. She has to go through that realization. She has to understand that.
Well, and that's why I like Murphy's and his with his Harley in White Knight. That whole realization that Joker was so far gone, he never really put together. She left. He just found another one to take her place. So
yeah,
I kind of like that too, but I do feel not necessarily that it was a love, but Joker did enjoy those sessions as well, as much as a sociopath can, right? That has no feeling.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, I'm not saying he didn't enjoy them, or even that he didn't have some kind of feeling, but just that he set out from the start to use Harley to get out, and that was the purpose behind the whole thing.
But I think along the course he developed something, because otherwise, here at the end, he can just leave her.
Right. No, I can't. I'm not disputing any of this, but I'm saying the reason why we made the sequel is that Harley needs to learn this. Harley needs to realize this.
Well, and that's where we are now in comics, right? That's what the whole Poison Ivy and
general,
Harley movie from Hauser is. So,
in the last few years in general.
Right. So, but yeah, no, this is fantastic.
Or even the new movie's kind of doing that. Of course.
Yeah.
I kind of want the sequel to this because I want this version of it. I want this version of Harley, and I want Cedric to tell that story because this is the one that I want to see happen.
I'm just so impressed with Cedric as a writer, because obviously we knew he could draw the shit out of whatever he wanted, because that's his thing. But we didn't. I don't think any of us had experienced him as a writer beforehand, and kind of knew he could actually deliver on the substance to back up all the nice, all the pretty pictures essentially, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how much lead time he had on this because these came out. I mean, obviously it was a delay to this issue, but for how many pages each of these books were, it was still pretty quick.
It was only delayed by like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, even at bi-monthly though, like this was more than a month's worth of usual comic art. Even if you half the issues, like half of one of these books is still like probably double of what a regular comic book issue is.
Well, remember we were trying to figure out why he was leaving Odyssey, because he was on there for the first couple issues, and this was probably it, right? Like,
well, not at the time. He just said he wanted to create her own stuff. That was the thing at the time.
At the time he was focusing on his Sunstone.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, I don't expect it to be announced too soon if he wants to like have it all basically ready to go again so that it can be monthly when the sequel hits. It's one of those things
where they can kind of announce it whenever they want. Yes, we are doing a sequel. We just won't solicit it yet.
They could do that, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we hear nothing for a year and then we get an announcement out of nowhere.
Yeah, it'll be a nice Comic-Con announcement at some point, whichever con they want to. Just throw that in there. They'll have it ready in the back pocket.
It's entirely possible there won't be a sequel, but I think we're all set ourselves up for one because A, we want one, but B, as I actually think the story threads are there to do it, because I feel like this feels like a complete story in the chapter it's telling, but it does feel like a chapter rather than the complete journey.
As a Harley Quinn origin, which is what we were always promised, it absolutely delivers on that in its entirety. There's just more to tell with Harley, or even this version of Harley.
Yeah, so no, very, very, very good. Very dense read, and never has reading like 80 pages been so easy.
That's what I'm gonna say. There's other books where I felt every page. This one, not so much.
Yeah, don't get me wrong though. Like I was curious where I was at one point, and I clicked on the thing, and I was only a third of the way through it, and I was like, "Damn!" Like I've been reading.
Yeah, it's
I
like,
did the same way.
Like 60-ish pages of story, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
but
it's still, compared to the usual 20, it's still triple a standard comic. But I think it reads faster than 3 comics.
Yeah, it'll make a nice big deluxe hardcover or whatever.
This is gonna look gorgeous. Like an absolute or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
All I know is I've been spoiled now because Cedric's drawn Starfire and Ivy, so like
It can only go downhill from here.
Right? So,
and even the little snippets of him like doing like Batman or other Gotham characters makes me think that, hey, just even if he doesn't want to do Harley next, do whatever he wants in the Gotham world.
I think it was Freeze. You just saw the glow in the red eyes in the like the ice smoke.
Yeah.
That looked great.
All right, what are you rating, Matt?
That was a 10.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm done with Matt. This it's another 10 for me.
Yeah, it's a 10.